All right. So in terms of the overall picture of the economy, what we have here on the left-hand side is the indicator of real GDP, which is in the red, and then gross domestic income in the blue. And as you can see, we are looking at an overall trend upward in real GDP. That's a good sign. We had a little bit of a dip here in this first quarter, but which is what we had expected as well in terms of our projections. So you're about on track to where where we would have expected you to be, and it's a really good picture in terms of a trend upward. That's the good sign, and that's the kind of thing that we've been looking at in the global economy as well, a general upturn in the last couple of years in terms of the projections. On the other hand, there are some other indicators that we can look at for countries around the world as well as for New Zealand, and that is GDP per capita, which is on the right-hand side. What we want to take away from this is sort of a little bit of a good news, bad news. The good news is for most economies around the world, the OECD, US, and the Euro area, for the projection period, which is in red, GDP per capita is shown to be rising. Against the historical average, though, which is in the black bars, we do not have a GDP per capita around the world up to the historical norms. Now, why that matters is that people's expectations are based on a longer term time horizon associated with that black bar. That's 87 to 2007. And so their expectations for what they would have expected for the increase in their own wages, for example, are related to GDP per capita. Their expectations for what the probability that their children will be able to do well is based on this historical average. And also the expectations that a national healthcare system and medical system and pension system can be financed is based on this historical norm. So our concern is that whether or not we're going to be able to make good on those expectations that were formed over a longer time horizon. For New Zealand, there's an additional question mark over the projection period, because as you can see here, GDP per capita in the projection is actually lower than previous periods. Why is that? It's because of immigration. Very large immigration is the denominator of GDP per capita. What this points out to us is that immigration is a great potential. Potential going forward to increase the capacity of the economy to deliver on promises. So that's the good part, but it might take some time. And so the transition period that we might want to be particularly aware of as we think about how to position the New Zealand economy to really take advantage of all of the immigration and to smooth the transition period that we, there's some bumps along the road perhaps. That's the kind of thing that we want to be thinking about when we look at some of our longer term trends for the economy. So here we have some other good news for New Zealand, at least in comparison to the rest of the OECD. On the left-hand side, we have the unemployment rate. And you can see for the New Zealand economy, it has come down dramatically since the global financial crisis. Overall, much lower than the OECD as a whole. That's the good news. There's still some ways to go, though, in terms of the unemployment rate today relative to what it was before the global financial crisis. We still have a 1.5% or so to go. What's not seen in that overall unemployment rate for New Zealand is the distribution across regions. In some regions, the unemployment rate is below 3, so well below where it was prior to the financial crisis. But in other regions, it's above 8. So regional disparity is a potential issue, could be a potential issue going forward, opportunity for policy consideration. In terms of real wages, which is of course what people care about when they think about what's in their pocketbook, for New Zealand, what we're looking at in terms of the projection period is actually an improvement going into 2018. And importantly, in comparison to, say, the US and the Euro area, for New Zealand, the real wage expectations are above the historical norms. And that's very important when we think about prospects for expectations, for confidence, for the kinds of growth going forward. It has the foundation of both improved employment prospects as well as improved real wage prospects, and both of those are key underpinnings of more broad-based growth for New Zealand. And you can see that's in contrast to other places around the world, the US and the Euro area in particular, where even though people may be more employed, they're not necessarily going to be earning higher wages. So overall, higher prospects, good picture for New Zealand going forward. Now here's one of the transition challenges of having such a robust immigration situation. One of the implications is, particularly with regard to concentration of immigration in certain markets, particularly Auckland, is that overall the house price to income ratio in New Zealand is higher than anywhere else. And this does have implications for financial stability. It has implications for labor mobility and productivity growth. And it has implications for distribution. And so across the board, house price to income ratios being at this highly elevated level warrant some concern. Debt to income ratio was already mentioned as a potential way of addressing financial stability, but it is not necessarily going to address some of the other concerns having to do with distribution or productivity growth. So we do want to look at the productivity growth issue. It's one of our special chapters. Two issues on productivity growth. One is the level. As you can see, the red line for New Zealand is well below either Australia or the United States. There's also a bit of a concern here when we see the trend. It's lower, and the trend, if you can see a little bit of a trend there, it's a downward trend. And that's opposite to the direction that we would want to go when thinking about longer term potential output and the capacity of the New Zealand economy to make good on its expectations. Another source of the productivity concerns is low rates of non-residential investment. As you can see the red line for New Zealand being a lower rate of investment than comparator countries or other countries around the world. Now, there are a number of reasons why we might see productivity lagging and investment being lower. One of them has to do with corporate tax rates. And as you can see here, in terms of the tax rate for New Zealand in red being above the median, which is in green. So because corporate taxes have both a domestic aspect to them for small businesses as well as an international aspect to them, attracting foreign direct investment, for example, a broad-based analysis of the taxes in total over the New Zealand economy is warranted as part of an overall picture of how to improve productivity growth in New Zealand. Another component of the government's package that was mentioned by Minister Joyce was focusing on innovation and R&D. We have the example of innovation here with the gaffer tape, but we would like to have it more broad-based around the New Zealand economy. And you can see here that with regard to both business R&D and government R&D, both of those for the New Zealand economy are really quite small in comparison to what we would see in the OECD. And this is as a percentage of GDP, so we're only taking account of the size of the economy. For an economy like New Zealand, particularly when looking forward for the role of digital and the implications that might have for raising incomes throughout the economy, we would like to get ready now so that when digital actually rolls out to the greater degree that it actually has already, having that prepared base coming from R&D is important. And it's not just paying to businesses, it's not just business R&D or R&D tax credits or something to firms, it's also, I'm going to skip this one, it's also the use of R&D within a industry business setting. Collaboration between industry and business in the terms of R&D is a key component of the effectiveness of R&D spending. You want to get outcomes in terms of innovation that is applied in business, who will hire workers, who will pay high wages, and integrate into the international marketplace. That is the full range of what you would like to get out of spending. What we've found in our research is that when business and universities and the government collaborate, you are more likely to really get the biggest bang for the dollar. And as you can see, New Zealand has a little bit more work to do. So we have additional recommendations having to do with foreign direct investment. Compared to other countries, foreign direct investment for entry into New Zealand faces more barriers, and foreign direct investment linkages are a key way in which to gain effectiveness for the R&D dollar and also to improve the level of productivity of firms, and so we recommend a narrower screening for foreign direct investment. An additional element of making the R&D dollar effective is to ensure that there's competition within the business marketplace so that the most innovative firms are the ones that grow and succeed. And there are some issues with regard to the Competition Commission and expanding the scope of analysis that the Competition Commission could engage with in order to ensure that a competitive environment in New Zealand, again, maximizes the benefits of the R&D dollar and maximizes the benefits to international competition. In order to grow effectively and to take advantage of the innovation environment and the immigration coming in, we want to ensure that there's adaptability in the marketplace for skills. The good news for New Zealand is that the types of jobs that are expanding the most, managers and professionals in the red line, these are the types of jobs that are least likely to be outsourced to robots, to be automated. And you can see in the right-hand panel the types of jobs that are most likely to be automated by robots. And New Zealand is positioning itself with regard to managers and professionals to be protected from automation, at least most of them. On the other hand, these are also the jobs that are accentuated by digitalization. So they are complementary to digitalization. They so ensuring that digitalization takes hold here would accentuate the protection of the labor market from automation. Now, on the other hand, there are not everyone is getting the advantages of the way the marketplace works here. The mismatch of skills in New Zealand, or this is the good news for New Zealand. They have high problem solving and technology risk environment. So as you can see, New Zealand people have the advantages in terms of comparison to the OECD average. On the other hand, not everybody is working in an environment where they can deploy those skills. So have the skills, are people engaged in a job that uses the skills? What we find, and you can see it in the kind of the the bar there that is sort of shaded lighter in red, what we have found is that many people who have the high technology skills, in fact, don't use them in their jobs. So there's a mismatch between what the skills they have and the skills that they use. And if we could get a better match between jobs and skills, the productivity growth in New Zealand could be about 2.25 percentage points higher. And again, the foundation of higher productivity growth is higher wages, is higher economic potential. Another different ways of displaying the mismatches of skills. As we go forward, we want to ensure that those skills are retained and go forward matching to the jobs that are growing. And some of the concerns we have is with regard to mathematics and numeracy, because if we look at the PISA scores, in fact, those with regard to math have declined over time. So we want to make sure that the next generation and the current generation continue to have the proper match of skills to the jobs. Additional issues is that there are going to be job displacements. As the economy evolves over time, displaced workers are going to have to be reapplied into new jobs. The current structure of benefits may not be the best match for the type of job displacement that is put into place. So we're looking at a problem where the means tested unemployment benefits, many people do not receive those benefits. Thinking about a broad-based unemployment scheme is a strategy that would support the adaptability of displaced workers into the new job considerations. And with that, I will conclude, and we now have an opportunity for Q&A.